righty, so good afternoon and welcome to the Following the Mockingbird Socratic Seminar. And this new Google Meet's a little different, but hopefully you'll figure things out just real quickly. Everything's down, it's like opposite of where it was before. So your chat box is over here. Hopefully, Mr. Short can let me know. Ow, that sounded like it hurt. Hopefully, Mr. Short can let me know when you're kicking in. It's kind of hard for me to go back and forth between these two tabs here. So let me get this shared with Asher. You are joined by Asher and Kai here at my location. Just your name. Put your name there. Okay. And then give it to Asher so he can have it. Did I just share that with you, Asher?
Let me see. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did. It's right there, shared with others. Okay. All right. Okie dokie. So, I had put this discussion question up because this is Jean Louise's final thoughts, and it kind of sums up what she has learned. So this is like the moral of the story, I guess you could say. And so it's important that we understand what it means here. So this is from page 277 at the bottom. The narrator tells us Jean Louise's thoughts. Dear goodness, the things I learned. I did not want my world disturbed, but I wanted to crush the man who's trying to preserve it for me. I wanted to stamp out all the people like him. I guess it's like an airplane. They're the drag and we're the thrust. Together we make the thing fly. Too much of us and we're nose heavy. Too much of them and we're tail heavy. It's a matter of balance. I can't beat them and I can't join them. What do you think this simile means? And what do you think is the life lesson the protagonist learns at this point? Who would like to start?
I think it's when she realizes that, I don't know, there's going to be pieces of crap in the world, and you just have to deal with them, and you just got to work together to figure things out.
Okay. Like how you go right for their throat. Pieces of crap.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, come on, there's 10 of you out there, so I'm sitting this one out. Well, now what I did was I took from the previous year's discussion board, mainly because with things different, there aren't as many responses as there were before. So this person said, I think this simile means there's a balance to life. Too much of one thing can cause life to be unbalanced and it could fall apart. Everyone's balance could be different from one another. I believe the life lesson is that you have to find that balance in your own life. Not everyone will agree, and that's okay. Balance is the important part. Now, here's the question I have. How do you find that balance?
I don't know.
You don't know. Have you found that balance yet, Kai?
Yep.
You have. Have you always had it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you didn't really need to go searching for it. Tell me your secret then, because I'm not sure if I've found my balance yet. Have the rest of you found your balance yet? How is that? Okay. Do you meditate? Here's the question. Shouldn't she have figured this out before 23 years old? Why do you think it's taken her this long to figure it out?
She hasn't. Well, she hasn't really proved herself as a mature person. I guess you can say she's like a late bloomer.
Okay.
That's what I look at it like. I don't know. She always been childish, I guess you can say.
Okay.
But
What are the instances of childishness in Go Set a Watchman where you can see, at least before the incident or maybe during the incident, that she's still immature?
I don't know. She just seems to like make everybody. She like likes to get into everybody's business and tries to make everybody like revved up. It seems to like excite her.
Yeah.
In some way.
In fact, just in the very beginning, where she's getting dressed, she changes her clothes, I think it is, so she's getting ready to see her aunt. And where was that? It was like right at the very beginning. Let's see. It's something about she could hear her aunt sniffing from Chattahoochee there or whatever, because she was wearing, I think it was the black sleeveless top and pants. And she knew that her aunt was going to be pretty upset with her because that's not how a lady dresses.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Yeah. Any other instances, or is there anybody who disagrees with the fact that she's still a child, at least in the beginning of this book? Well, wait. Asher says that she's still a bit childish in her adulthood. Okay. What evidence is there of that? He's saying it's this instantaneous want to fire people up, to make them antagonistic towards her. Is there anything else that any other behavior that seems childish to you? Okay. Is that childish quality or characteristic, or could that just be? Are we talking only about Henry here, or are we talking about other things too? Yeah. Right. Yes. Very good. I would definitely qualify that as kind of a childish behavior. And not always going to be there. All right, moving on. Here's another person's opinion. In my opinion, it seems that Jean Louise is using the simile to compare it with her relationship to her father Atticus. Perhaps Jean Louise's main point is to show that she was not trying to change her father. She just wanted Atticus to be honest with her. What's interesting is that the simile uses the dragon's thrust. Neither are negative terms regarding the plane, and she makes them both seem necessary, much like how her father's views on the topic. They are different than hers, but make the world unique and balanced. What responses do you have to this person's opinion? You shared with me file. Okay. Um, okay, we'll just put in Denver and Madison. Isis and okay, there you go. So take another look at the what this person says, and do you agree that her problem was that she's not trying to change her father? She just wanted Atticus to be honest with her. Do you agree with that?
I feel like she has problems with it, but she can still accept it. It's just the fact that he didn't tell her that bugged her so bad. I don't know.
Do you think Atticus purposely hid from her what he was doing? You know? Because what is he doing later when they get back to when she's finally able to confront him after Uncle oh Jack, right, after he slapped some sense into her literally, when she's confronting him, what does he basically tell her? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And the fact that To Kill a Mockingbird, the way our society views it, it's a black and white movie. And the way the movie's portrayed, which is pretty close to how the book was written, is a very black and white world. There was truth, and there was justice, and then there was, trying to do the opposite. But that's not, when you get into this book, and especially when you look at Atticus's reasoning, is the Atticus of To Kill a Mockingbird the same Atticus in Ghost of the Watchman? I think it's the next one. Maybe not. Let's figure out which slide that is. Yeah, let's go ahead and switch to 10, slide 10. We'll go back and pick up a couple others, but this has Atticus changed from the first book to the second book. And it's the ACP, yeah. Okay, good. Do you understand, not that you need to accept it, but do you understand what Atticus's reasoning is in this second book, why he doesn't want the NAACP involved, why he is attending this meeting, if not outright, participating and giving information? He's still there. Do you understand what the argument is? Is there somebody who wants to try and kind of explain what Atticus's argument is about why he attended this meeting? Right? If you look at page 245 of the book, as they're having this conversation, and he's trying to work with Jean Louise logically into his own frame of mind, and Jean Louise says, "Then what are you, a snob or something?" He says, "Yes, I'll accept being called a snob when it comes to government. I'd like very much to be left alone to manage my own affairs in a live and let live economy. I'd like for my state to be left alone to keep house without advice from the NAACP, which knows next to nothing about its business and cares less. The organization has stirred up more trouble in the past 5 years," and she cuts him off. One of the things that happened during the civil rights movement, NAACP, and there were about 3 other organizations, specifically were challenging the federal government says you cannot segregate. So the places where there was still segregation, these organizations purposely challenged the segregation in those areas so that the federal government would be forced to come in and intervene. And the states, from the time of the Civil War, it was never really about slavery, it was about economy. Unfortunately, the people of the South believed that their workers, who happened to be slaves, didn't need to be paid like real people. But that should be against our core beliefs. And so the federal government was saying you can't do that. And that's why there was a civil war, because the states wanted to have that independence from intervention from the federal government. And so this is the old South mentality. And the odd thing is, we're still hearing about Alabama politics, even today. You heard the recent?
About abortion?
Mm-hmm. Oh. And whatever your opinion is about abortion, it's still coming down to that very Southern specific mentality, where if the government has said that abortion should be an available option to women, but the Alabama government is saying, not in our state, it's not, then what is the obligation of the federal government in that case? Or does it have one? That's why it's also controversial. So that's the mentality that Jean Louise is coming up against here. She spent all this time in New York, and if there's two more opposite places, it's Alabama and New York. And so it's having to accept that this opinion exists, and that she has to in some way accept it. So I ask again, is the Atticus Finch of To Kill a Mockingbird the same Atticus Finch of Ghost at a Watchman? We have a vote, yes he is.
Yeah.
You think so, Kai?
No, not either. Yeah.
Okay. Did you see the movie? Okay.
I should have to be like condensed.
And I will tell you, Asher had asked earlier, is it okay if we just watch To Kill a Mockingbird? Will that give the gist of what you need? Yes, it will. I will also tell you that To Kill a Mockingbird is still a fabulous book, and there's parts in the book that were not put in the movie, but yes, it is. So if that's what you need to do to get a better understanding, go ahead. Okay, let's go back and see what we missed here. I think we've kind of addressed that. In what ways has Atticus changed to Jean Louise? And let's look for some evidence. What is the evidence that shows us how she sees him differently now? When we know he's not real anymore. We're looking for. Let me ask this. What evidence is there that Atticus is racist? Little discussion where he's trying to reason with her. It's right there. get little hints of it through, but let's see. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, well, right here it does say, although he claims to want fair treatment for all races, he also appears to believe that black people are not ready for full citizenship.
That's right.
So that could be like, it's not the nice treatment.
Right. And that was the philosophy of the time, is that, well, and you got to admit the black people of the South were not educated because they were separated. They were given poor quality teachers. Not to say that the teachers there, you know, they put the worst there. It's just that those teachers had to be black, and those teachers were not educated to the same quality as white teachers were. And so they barely could read or write. And so they're saying that if these people got elected, things would just go downhill because all the uneducated people are voting. That's a bad thing. Well, whose fault is that, and how do you fix it? You educate them. You teach them to read, you teach them history, you teach them politics, then they become informed voters, and you let them vote. But of course, and that's Jean Louise, of course, that's what she's saying. But he's saying it's, you know, it's going to take time. I do believe the South has still not reached that point yet. There's still people who are somehow blocked from voting. So, okay. All right. Here is the essay prompt. The first paragraph is just the lead in, of course, giving you the history behind it.
Okay. I thought we were going to go back.
Oh, do you want to go back to the other ones were about the quotes. And so,
We can skip it.
in fact, I think this is the one that Mr. Short was referring to earlier. This is a quote. One of the activities you had was to pick a quote that best represents Atticus Finch. This comes from To Kill a Mockingbird. Courage is not a man with a gun in his hand. It's knowing your licks before you begin, but you begin anyway. And you see it through no matter what. You rarely win, but sometimes you do. This one comes from, not that one. Or was it? I thought I had one from, yeah, this is Go Set a Watchman. Honey, you do not seem to understand that Negroes down here are still in their childhood as a people. You should know it. You've seen it all your life. Of course, on the right, or I'm sorry, on the left, that one is from To Kill a Mockingbird. Are you proud of yourself tonight that you have insulted a total stranger whose circumstances you know nothing about? That's the little Cunningham boy who wanted to put molasses on his food, and she got after him. Which one of those do you think best encapsulates the full Atticus Finch?
Out of all three of them?
Oh, yeah, you can do all three of them, yeah.
Say, probably the first one.
And why do you pick that one?
Because out of, like, I haven't fully read the books and I've watched, like, part of them. From what I've seen, he seems like the kind of guy who would just say something like that. Like, he just seems like a stand-up guy for the most part.
Okay.
And that's like the stand-up guy would say.
Okay. Does anybody want to respond to that?
I don't know, like I said earlier, balanced or whatever. So picking one quote doesn't make sense.
Well, that's Scout who says about the airplane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, pick one that's, like, they're very skewed.
Right. And, you know, Mr. Short had made reference to that earlier. This is more complex than it's been made out to be. What's interesting about the book is they filmed it actually in Monroe County. Macomb is the made-up name, a made-up town name, but it's still in the same county. And the courthouse that they used, they actually shot in Alabama. And there will be tours that take people through the city parts there where the movie was filmed. And they'll say, yeah, Gregory Peck stood right here and defended the rights of a black man, and they'll brag about that. And yet, in Monroe, Alabama, there have been so many falsely imprisoned black men who later, in fact, there was one, it's the story behind Just Mercy. Stevenson, what is his name? Forgot the first name. It's Just Mercy by something Stevenson. And in that very courthouse, there was another man who was convicted of murdering a white girl, despite the fact that he had 100 witnesses from his church with him on the day that the murder was supposed to have occurred. And he was imprisoned for 15 years on death row. And he was put there before he was sentenced there. And this is still the same Alabama where they're bragging about it. So it's that complexity where you are, there's not a black and white, right or wrong here. There's a lot of components that we're all imperfect. And what's good to see, I think, about this, but there were a lot of people who were mad when this book got published. Very upset. Because it really tainted the vision of Atticus Finch. But it also shows us that Atticus Finch was indeed human. But he did seem to be a pretty good guy overall yet. Anybody have any other comments about that? All right, so taking a look at the essay prompt, Atticus Finch is one of the most recognized characters of American fiction. His portrayal by Gregory Peck in the 1964 film adaptation of To Kill a Mockingbird solidified him as the archetypal American man of integrity, honor, and wisdom. Although he encourages Jem and Scout to call him Atticus so they can interact with him on terms as equal as possible, he also has a particular standing in Macomb that continues. Many years after the conclusion of the first novel, we learn that Jean Louise, now in her early 20s, she returns home for a brief view of her hometown, and to her horror, in a character analysis essay, describe how Jean Louise's view of her father changes from the first to the second novel, and explain how and why you think these changes have occurred. For this literary analysis, it's going to be an easy outline because you're going to do this chronologically. You need to give first a basic claim. How has he changed? Or how has she changed? If you look at it, it's her view. So really, you're looking at the changes in Jean Louise. She definitely changes. It's kind of questionable whether Atticus changes, but certainly we can see changes in Jean Louise. So you're going to then start with the claim of how she has changed. And I think I've heard some people say she's finally grown up, she's that. What would be a good claim?
Her perception of her father after she's learned everything versus her perception of his beliefs has changed.
Good. That's a good one. Anybody else? Okay. So the paragraphs then will be, first you need to start with the beginning. Now, that's kind of like the whole Scout. It's Scout, really. I think you can very safely differentiate Scout from Jean Louise. So the body one paragraph, you're going to need evidence primarily from the first, explains how Jean Louise sees her father in the beginning. That here, how does it happen? You know, what are some things that happens in the first book shows us this is a hero worship? Right. He's defending the underdog, and he's defending it with a vehemence that really surprises her. You know, when Finch knows that there's going to be a lynch mob after him, he takes the lamp and the book and he goes out and he just stays vigil for outside the jail, make sure nobody comes in and gets him. So and she's watching that, and of course this is, I think that's right after the one shot Finch where where he kills the rabid dog with just one shot. And so there's so many different instances that you can see she really is admiring him, and he does stand up for the underdog. What was that? You okay? Sorry about that. Then body paragraph 2. Then the character changes through. So at this point, now let me ask you, when is Jean Louise's change complete?
Change is complete when she talks to her school and where she pretty much realizes the whole balance thing.
Right.
That's when it changes.
Okay. And so that's going to be most of the first part of the book. She has this really, it is a childish reaction to seeing Atticus and Henry in the courthouse at this Citizens Council meeting. She's got to go get ice cream. She's just completely devastated. It is a real childish kind of reaction to it. And then finally, what has she become? And it obviously is through the help of Uncle Jack and talking with her father. So that's going to be the organization of this. And then your conclusion is, what does the audience learn about their own growth by following this character development? I think we've all kind of spoke about that, about this willingness to accept people for who they are, that their ideas will be different, that it's okay to listen to them, agree with them, but you can't push them away. That's not how things get settled. So does that square away, Asher, your question from earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it should be fairly easy in the organization of it. Now, when it comes to using the evidence, we don't want quote bombs dropped. A quote bomb is basically you make a statement and then you stick in the quote. Not how it works. You've got to show your thinking from the claim to what's happening in the book, then using the evidence from the text to complete that thought, and how do they connect to each other. So here's an example. The yellow part is what I refer to as a lead-in. It's taking it, here's what's happening in that section of the book right before the quote comes. As Jean Louise confronts Henry about the Citizens Council meeting, Henry explains that Atticus was once a member of the Klan, and then the gray part is the actual quote from the book, to find out exactly what men in behind the mask. Notice it's only part of the sentence. I don't need the whole thing. I only need the meat of it that's showing what the actual reason was. Notice too how I cited the page number. because this is only addressing the two books, you can use either TKAM for To Kill a Mockingbird or GSAW for Ghost of the Watchman, and then the page number where this comes from. The blue part is your analysis. Through this piece of information, Harper Lee wants the reader, as well as Jean Louise, to understand that Atticus may not be in agreement with those who want to silence the Black people of Macomb County. That's tying together how does the or the piece of it relate back to the claim. Okay, so that is called a chunk. I get that from Jane Schaefer, if you've ever heard of her writing method. But a chunk is using the evidence with the analysis. You need at least 2 of those per body paragraph. So how many pieces of evidence are you going to need total, minimum? 6, right. Okay, and Mr. Short, you're with me on this one, right? So if I say this works for your students as well? Because we're so close to the end, there's going to be no peer review. This is also considered basically your final. Everybody's been saying, do we have a final in this class? Yeah, it's this. But if we get the essays early enough where we can go through and give you feedback, you are welcome to go back and resubmit. You have up until 11:59 p.m. on Tuesday. That means 12 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday. Canvas closes the class. It gets wiped off your dashboard. You will not see grades or feedback at that time, but you can still inbox message us. I will have everything graded as soon as possible on that Wednesday, and I will post the semester grade in Synergy. So that's where you can find it. Okay. Any questions about anything we have gone over?
Oh, okay. What if we what if we watch the movie for To Kill a Mockingbird,
right?
but then we want to like quote a part of the movie, cite like.
You got to go into the book and find out where it is. The book is pretty close to it. Like I said, there's a lot in the book that's not in the movie, but what's in the movie is mostly in the book. Okay. There's only ever been the one. No, unfortunately, and I hope they don't, honestly. I don't want them to make, well, I don't want them to make any new movies of anything, but this is too much a part of our history, of our background. So, no. And I don't even think there's a discussion about making Ghost out of movie. I don't think we'll ever. Any other questions? Mr. Short, do you have anything you want to add? Okay then, well, good luck on this, and remember 11:59 p.m. Tuesday, that's the last moment you can turn it in, but if you turn it in earlier, we'll try as hard as we can to make sure you get some feedback if you want to revise. Okay? Alrighty, thank you everyone for attending, and we'll see you later. Bye. Bye-bye. Nice hearing from you, Denver.